less than or about a mile away from the fence. And I can tell you, it is the most surreal scene. I think probably one of the more surreal nights I've had here in Israel since the conflict began. Sderot was one of the original October 7th massacre sites. It's got a lot of families, a lot of young children. So they mostly returned. They're celebrating this holiday, this festival behind me with these bonfires. But we just had an F-16 about 30 minutes ago fly overhead real low, launch one of its missiles, and then deploy its flares. And we can hear the outgoing artillery from this position targeting the north, the Bet Hanun area of Gaza, which is about 2-3 miles away from where we are currently. So the dichotomy couldn't be more extreme. You have these families here celebrating and an active war zone about a mile and a half away.
And we can speak now to the journalist Zach Anders, who's at the border between Gaza and Israel. Good evening, Zach.
Hi, good evening.
I suppose the timing of this will be scrutinised. This is the first attack by Hamas, a missile attack on Tel Aviv, in almost 4 months. What do you put that down to? Can it be linked to the Israeli operation in Rafah?
Yeah, since January 29th, we haven't had a red alarm in Tel Aviv, but there have been multiple alarms over the last 4 months in these communities around the south of the Gaza Strip. And one of the larger cities in Israel, Beersheba, which is in the south as well, has come under fire over the last month. Uh, and we've seen over the course of ground forces moving into areas that rockets then get launched from those areas, likely as Hamas is about to lose that position. IDF aerial surveillance has, from these airstrikes that you see often in the media, eliminated some of these rocket launch posts, but they're very well hidden and they're mostly underground. The final moment where they're about to launch, when Hamas is ready to launch, is literally a cover that's removed off the soil or the earth, likely from, in a lot of these places, from tunnels and these tunnel entrances. They'll remove the cover and then the launch happens within seconds. So very hard to detect. It's been one of the complications of this conflict over the last 7-8 months. But seeing that these rockets came from Rafah does speak to that fact that the rocket positions in Rafah likely haven't been hit yet, because this was where the IDF told everyone to go and swelled to 1.2 million civilians. Now 890,000 have evacuated from this area, the IDF says.
Zach, I just want to ask you about what it is like being on the border between Gaza and Israel at the moment. I mentioned you are there right now. I can see, I've got a big screen in the studio, I can see where you are, and over your right shoulder, there are what appear to be burning cars. It's a pretty dramatic scene. Just describe what it's like around you and what it's like on the border at the moment.
Always a shame with the radio audience. I feel like I can never lean into it. So tonight is Lag BaOmer, which I know I'm pronouncing incorrectly, a Jewish holiday that, as I understand it, it commemorates the death of a rabbi. So we're less than or about a mile away from the fence. And I can tell you, it is the most surreal scene. I think probably one of the more surreal nights I've had here in Israel since the conflict began. Sderot was one of the original October 7th massacre sites. It's got a lot of families, a lot of young children. So they mostly returned. They're celebrating this holiday, this festival behind me with these bonfires. But we just had an F-16 about 30 minutes ago fly overhead real low, launch one of its missiles, and then deploy its flares. And we can hear the outgoing artillery from this position targeting the north, the Bet Hanun area of Gaza, which is about 2-3 miles away from where we are currently. So the dichotomy couldn't be more extreme. You have these families here celebrating and an active war zone about a mile and a half away.
Wow. Just finally, Zach, what is the mood, particularly on the border, but generally in Israel at the moment? Does it feel like things are escalating again?
I can tell you that the concern immediately is that this government is facing, I mean, it was already under immense pressure, and this latest hostage talk ceasefire deal that fell apart really did ratchet this up another degree, which a lot of people were running out of words on how to describe how extreme Netanyahu's isolation has become from his own war cabinet, from his own government, from the ultra-nationalist ministers that brought him into power to begin with and gave him this coalition. Even they are starting to attack him directly. And then over the weekend, we have a soldier, a reservist, who's inside Gaza, by all accounts, from some of the sources we've spoken to, when he records this video. And he says, quote, "Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, this video is for you. We reservist soldiers do not intend to hand the keys over to any Palestinian authority. We don't intend to give the keys to Gaza to any entity, Hamas, Fatah, or any other Arab entity. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You have 100,000 reservist soldiers that are ready to give their lives for the people of Israel, ready to die." He goes on and continues, and essentially the concern and why this is consuming the media cycle here in Israel is that he bucks the chain of command and ignores Defense Minister Gallant, calls out Defense Minister Gallant directly, and says, "We're only going to follow the marching orders of Prime Minister Netanyahu." Well, you can't do that. You can't be an active duty and display that kind of contradiction and not go through your superiors to directly contradict your superiors. And to have this filmed from inside Gaza, he's wearing a mask, is quite remarkable. We've found out this afternoon that that reservist soldier has been found. His identity is known to the IDF, that he's been brought in for questioning. But the big question here, and what's going to be dividing the Israeli public for the next media cycle, is what kind of punishment he should receive for this show of his own political will inside Gaza, and whether or not this accounts for insubordination. Could he be arrested? Israeli law here says if he was to be found insubordinate, he could face up to 5 years in jail.
Zach, as ever, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. That's the journalist Zach Anders there, who's at the Gaza-Israel border for us.
Air raid sirens blared in Tel Aviv on Sunday, sending residents running for cover for in Herzliya, north of Tel Aviv. The Israeli military said 8 projectiles were identified crossing from the area of Rafah, the southern tip of the Gaza Strip. It said a number of the projectiles were intercepted. Israel's emergency services said they'd received no reports of casualties. But the volley demonstrated the armed Palestinian group's resilience despite Israel's Gaza